This is Scott Carpenter with the Carpenter Group at Keller Williams. And I have with me tonight for our monthly, uh, every month we do this webinar on the third Thursday of the month. And we have with us tonight from Revolution Mortgage, my partners over there, we've got Heather Waddell. And Heather is with us, not necessarily taking the spot of Todd Ligozinski, but giving me an easier name to say. Thank you, Heather. And we have with us from Ohio Real Title, Janelle Kiefer, a regular on our show here every month. Hello, Janelle. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Exciting stuff
Awesome.
in the news.
Awesome.
Come on.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for bringing up the news. Great segue. I thought we would start out tonight with a brief update on what we have just been learning about the market this past week. I think everybody can agree that Northeast Ohio is a very, very robust market right now. Although inventory remains low, we have more inventory than last year at this time, and sales are up modestly, but they are seemingly above what they were last year a little bit. And this week, we heard from the Federal Reserve, the new Federal Reserve chairman, and the Federal Reserve feedback on what they're seeing in the economy and what they're planning to do. And it turns out that they're going to hold steady, much to perhaps some people's chagrin or hopes dashed. They're going to remain steady. And we're not going to be seeing a big move downward in the coming months on interest rates when it comes to mortgages. In fact, 9 of the 18 members of the board indicated that we may even see an uptick in rates before the end of the year, as long as the economy continues to be having some inflationary pressures on it. And all of that said, we are in the real estate world, and while we're not directly tied to what goes on to that, what that rate does, it's not like their rate directly affects what the interest rates are for mortgages. The economy does. That said, this is going to have an impact on sales. It's certainly going to have an impact on our buyers and sellers in the coming months. And so I thought that would be a terrific place to start here tonight, to really review where you guys are at in your worlds and how you see things going over the next 3 to 6 months. Heather, I'm going to turn it over to you as our mortgage specialist at Revolution Mortgage. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, right now, as you said, it's staying pretty steady. And steady at this point is probably pretty positive. Like you said, once again, the rates aren't looking like they're going to tick downwards instead of upwards. We're really recommending that everybody just be ready. Get that pre-approval, make sure you're shopping, doing all those things, because, you say, oh, I'm waiting 3 to 6 months, but we all know that house is going to pop up in 2 weeks and you're going to want it. And that interest rate isn't going to matter at that moment because you're going to want that house. And, when the rates do hopefully drop, who knows, maybe next year or whenever, we can look into restructuring, so it's never a bad time to buy if you find the home or the reason that you need to move.
Yeah, that's a great. I think you just nailed it on the head. It's stable now, so now is really a good time if you're thinking about selling or buying, and if you're selling, you're typically buying something. So now it sounds like is a great time because the future is very much unknown at this point. And so all this waiting, right, ends up being perhaps a mistake, lost time in your new home, lost time in your new lifestyle, which you've been dreaming about and putting on hold because you think the rates are going to somehow change dramatically. Before we go on to Janelle, what are the rates right now that you're, like the range? Because of course it is a range depending upon, your credit and so forth.
Right. I mean, we're seeing like the low to the mid sixes, for your standard stuff. Some of it, depending on credit, we will see, the higher fives. But it just depends on the loan and the program and all that good stuff. But I would say mid sixes to low sixes is pretty safe at the moment.
And what does a buy down look like if someone were to come up with some cash at closing to do a buy down? What would that look like?
Typically, like to stay within the guidelines and the regulations, you can get down to, into that 599 range pretty safely.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that to me, that's another really great strategy for folks, at least for the immediate future, for those people who are, like sorry that they missed the chance at 2 3/4 and 3%. But they are in a position they have to move right now. That could be a really good, especially if they're cashing in on a house that they're selling, they've got equity that they can
Correct.
put into the new house with a buy down, right?
Yep.
Right. Janelle, what do you think? What do you think about all this news that we're hearing?
I feel like we've been such an economy, a lifestyle, a market of complete instability. But the one stable thing is that families don't change. People's needs don't change. I think that the instability of, am I going to have a job? Am I going to be able to afford the bare necessities of life? I think those are bigger hindrances more so on families than the interest rates. Interest rates are a piece of the puzzle, but when the puzzle gets more pieces and more difficult based off just basic needs of what consumers are seeing, I think that is where the instability lies. I think the Fed is going to do what the Fed needs to do and either stay steady or increase. And we even talked about this. Like I remember having this discussion, Scott, with you and Todd and I and Heather. He wasn't with Revolution yet, but it was even a year ago. We're like, well, where do you think rates are? We're like, I don't see them coming down. And so we
Yeah.
predicted the future, way ahead. So I do think that it's all a very personal decision. And when the reason is to buy or sell, that is the reason to start getting pre-approved. And as Scott said, now is the time because we don't know what's going to happen. It's very, very, it's very unstable right now. But at the core of it, your personal need to move, I think to look at your stability and your personal lifestyle, your career, your typical spending habits, it's going to contribute to whether you move or not right now. And I think it's just a little bit more concentrated now than ever in
Yeah.
that decision making.
Yeah, I think to put it another way, because we do have a lot of people who've been waiting.
Yeah.
It feels suddenly like this is the moment. Like if you've been waiting, you've been on the fence, you've been thinking about selling or thinking about buying, now is the moment because we're kind of at this inflection point. As we said, I mean, we don't know whether or not the Federal Reserve in 6 months will raise rates. But what we do know is that they're going to stay steady. They're not going to change. We're not going to be seeing, 4% tomorrow. Not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen for a few years, if it ever happens, right?
Mhm.
So I think that we're at that kind of inflection point for the people who have been waiting and they've got plans. They've been thinking, gee, we really need to do this, or we really want to do this, for all of those, for any of the many reasons that people have to move. It feels like this is kind of a moment that they really need to focus on and get going on. Heather, in your world, I know we work with a lot of different clients. Like we have wealthy clients, we have middle class clients, we have first time home buyer clients who are scraping together the nickels to make it happen. Um,
Yep.
Tell me in your world, from your experience, how does it feel when you're working with somebody and they've decided they're gonna pull the trigger. They're gonna do what they need to do here.
It's just super exciting. And like to be able to be like, yes, this was so much work. Like they feel like, all the process and getting approved and all that. And then it's like, this is what all that was for. And when they really get that feeling of, you know what? I should have done this a long time ago. Like it wasn't that bad, and that
Mhm.
depends on the team you have too. You can make the process stressful or you can make it, it's just being upfront with them day one and letting them know what they're going to expect so that it's a great time. And then you're like, I want to be there at closing because, they become like your family. It's just so cool. And then they tell their family, and then next thing you know, you got somebody else calling and saying, hey, Ashley, bought a home and I was kind of thinking about it because we're in the same situation. And it's like
Mhm.
a trickle down effect, but it's really cool, especially the ones that have been sitting for a year. We've been talking to them for 18 months, and then they're finally like, okay, I'm ready. Or we had a ton of credit repair. Those are always the best, where they've had to dedicate the time and take the money they thought was going to be for a down payment and use it to repair their credit. But those ones are even more special, because they just really put the work in and made the decision that, they should have maybe made a little sooner, but we got it done and now they have a home. So that's one of the most rewarding part of my job, I think, for sure.
Yeah, that actually you said something that really uh, caught my ear, and that was when they say something like, "This was easier than I thought,"
Mhm.
right? And I have to say, we're, we do this falling off a log. It's the phrase. We do all this stuff sort of falling off a log, and we tend to forget how nervous, how scary, how anything all of this is for first-time home buyers and people who've been in their houses forever.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That's like it's like almost like it's a death for them,
Yep.
right? It's like a death. It's like a passing of some kind. It's so profound. We tend to, I even personally, I tend to forget how emotional this is.
Mhm.
Um, that said, to your point, the the team behind them, and the encouragement, the information,
Yep.
right? The education, the information that we bring to the table is really can be such a savings for people, meaning their hearts and their minds are saved
Yep.
Right.
For
from all of
sure.
that tension and anxiety that this decision creates, right?
Yep. Yep. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
knowing that they just have that support,
Mhm.
I didn't come from, my mother, God bless her, we were taught to use credit cards growing up and I didn't have that financial wisdom. So I feel grateful that I'm able to have those conversations with the first time home buyers or, the older people, like you said, that have been in their house for 30 years and mortgage is a lot different than it was the first time around, and
Mhm.
having to go meet, people at the library because they can't figure out their documents. And,
Right.
it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
part of the game. And, but
Mhm.
it makes it all worth it at the end. But it's just a matter of, doing what you can to help people to make
Yeah.
it be that experience. And then if it's a good experience for them, I feel like it's an even better experience for me.
Right.
Yeah, it's a process, and we know
Hmm.
it. We know it really well, and like I said, we kind of do it falling off a log, and they don't. And I think that's where sharing, making clear, each step of the way, and then holding hands, like making sure that everybody
Yep.
knows this is going to all work out. We're going to get
Right.
you through. We're going to get you through all of this. So when I think about all the waiting that's been going on, I think about all of the people that are waiting, because not necessarily because they're watching the market rates, but because they're just scared,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Sky, that made me think when you brought that up about the waiting. If you're ready, the market is different. So you might be ready and there may not be what you're looking for. It might take longer. So even if you're like on the verge, you just take that leap because you have to. It's a very competitive market, especially for first-time home buyers. And if you're on the fence for whatever reason, put your blinders on, tune out the market right now, focus on the need, and just take that leap because it might be quick, but it really may not be as quick as you think. as far as finding that first home or that forever home or whatever. So yeah, the longer you wait, the longer it's going to put you behind. And I don't
Exactly.
know, just
You're
yeah,
just yeah, you're just putting off your future. Really, you're putting off your
right.
future and your happiness in your new home, and if it, and or your change, whatever the change is that you got to get through. It's always better to keep one foot going in front of the other, because if
Right.
you stop, you just get bogged down. All
Mhm.
that said, I uh, I personally am anxious to make clear to everybody that I know that it's important, that now is such an important time, and I say that in sincerity, with all sincerity. It's not just a sales pitch, because I've been around long enough to know there's been a few times when I waited. There have been a few times in my lifetime where, in my 40 plus years of adulthood, where I waited and missed out. When Todd and I were talking, not on our Zoom last, but recently we were talking a little bit about that. And as you get older, you start to realize you missed quite a few of these little opportunities because you were thinking something outside of your control would improve, and consequently you would have a better chance at something. Well, um, it's not a sales pitch to say, as we've all been saying here, um, with these changes that we're seeing at the Fed, those changes mean that um, we're going to see a pretty stable uh, environment for mortgages. So at least for the next 3 to 6 months, really, and that's a great time. Three months is about what it takes to get you out the door,
Mhm.
looking and then buying and then selling the house you live in, so that you can make the move that you want to make. So that 3 to 6 month window feels like this really is an inflection point. I
Mhm.
sorry to keep going back to that, but
Mhm.
I want to make it clear it's not a sales pitch. I feel like this is a really, really good time.
Yeah.
Um, Janelle, you're on the receiving end of all the deals
Yeah.
in the title world.
Hmm.
Um, Tell me about what it's looking like on your end, numbers of deals. And I'm just curious, I want to bring up another topic, which is we are seeing more deals where we've got sellers who have to sell before they can buy.
Yeah.
On your end, what is it looking like when we're getting to the tail end of these things? Are we seeing more double closings or more closings that are like that?
We see to be honest, by the time it gets to us, we see a fair amount of simultaneous closings. It doesn't seem as much or indifferent. So right now, at the same time, I don't know. We don't know if the seller's purchase was contingent of the sale of their home by the time it gets to us. So we do see simultaneous closings. Um, and there should be a day wiggle room, people. Okay, just know that.
Yes, please.
I
Yeah,
hear that.
for simultaneous
Amen to
closing.
that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, you know what I mean.
goodness.
But and then you did mention quantity of deals. So every day we get an end of business report, and to be fair, I work for Ohio Real Title. We're number one in multiple markets in our area. Okay, just setting that out there to let you know, though, we're also seeing not the typical second quarter amount of sales at the end of the day. So like on Mondays, because it's the weekends, yes, we'll see a nice amount of deals. But to be honest, it's fluctuating. Um, it's not as high as last year, but the price points are higher, so we're still profitable. So maybe the number of units is down a little bit. The sale price is still high. It's not COVID and slightly post-COVID sale prices. However, we're still seeing a high price point. So, it's still decent. We're not like in a depression. We're not seeing like 20 houses sold in a day, but we're also not seeing that 80, 90 that we'll see in a day in the summer throughout the whole week. So what
Okay.
that tells me is what we're already seeing. Low inventory, more competition. more savvy buyers. Sellers are loosening their grip on the sale price, what they think versus what actually is. So that's a positive. So by the time it gets to us, the deal has been done. Um, but we're not seeing, but it's a pendulum. It'll probably swing back by July.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that answers your
So let me
question,
let
but
me
it's
just make
it's
sure
it's
I
different.
let me
Right.
just make sure I understood you correctly though, which is number one, the simultaneous closings, you're not seeing like a big uptick in that.
No, we're not.
Okay. And
Pretty
number
steady.
two, on the overall sales, it's kind of flat. It's not like
Yeah,
suddenly there's like a big boom in sales, right?
at all. Right.
And prices are steadily increasing over last year's. We're
What we're
seeing
seeing. Yeah.
overall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that jives 100% with everything that I'm experiencing
Right.
in the field, so to speak. How
Yeah.
about you, Heather? What are you seeing in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, definitely higher prices. Some of the houses come through and you're like, whoa, like, is that gonna appraise when the offers come in? But I mean, for the most part, they do, which is just, the comps in the area, which is crazy.
Mhm.
But we are seeing that. We had a fun simultaneous sale. It was actually three properties had to be sold to purchase one. It was
Mhm.
like the family coming in together, and it was me and Todd, and it was just like, oh my goodness. And luckily we controlled the three of the deals, but the other one we didn't. So the buyer's like, well, what's going on? Or I'm like, I have nothing to do with that one. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
But you
lots of
know what?
moving parts.
Gosh darn it, we got it done, and we
Yeah.
said, hey, that was a lesson learned. Now we know how to do it. It was crazy. Do we want to do it again? No. Can we?
Not that kind. Not
Yes.
that kind. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right, right.
yeah. Wow.
But yeah.
Wow. Well, that's really interesting. In the past 5 years, I've done a couple of simultaneous close. That said, we had a meeting this week with the Market Center at Keller Williams Greater Metropolitan, and we had a tutorial on that contingency because apparently we weren't doing it right. So, or at least that's what our broker made clear, is that we need to do this right. He wasn't pointing fingers at anybody, but we need to make sure we're doing this right. So the home sale contingency was the topic this week, or one of
Yeah.
the topics this week from our broker, and it was in anticipation of what they're feeling is coming. They're seeing more and more, or at least let's put it this
Mhm.
way, Andrew. The broker is getting more and more phone calls from agents in the
Right.
office asking him, how does this work? Which one should I use? Is this a
Yeah.
concurrency or is this a contingency? Etc. So we went over that, and I was just curious to hear from you guys, from your experience, if you're seeing any kind of an uptick. I also, though, I think Heather, you and I can agree that a lot of the people in my lead pool, the people who are in my client base, my consumers, there are a lot of contingents,
Contingent.
right?
Yep. And I've got a bunch outside of you too. I mean,
Mhm.
and that's kind of what it does seem that people are doing. But then it comes to where they get so much equity out of the home because they owed on the other one. And then you have to figure out, is the move better than what you're in now? So that's what we're seeing a little bit of too with the higher market prices. But we've definitely seen a lot of, people selling to rebuy.
Right.
I would say over the last 2 or 3 months, it's been more than I had seen previously.
How about what people are doing with the equity? So for example, let's say they do a downsize, right? They've got a $500,000 house and they buy a $300,000 house. What are people doing with that money? And what are some of the things that you're
Bigger,
seeing? Or
yeah, like bigger down payments, for smaller payments, buying down the rate. A lot of that stuff is what we're seeing with that. Some people, will turn it around and use it to buy an investment property if there's enough there. that the DSCR has become extremely popular with those investment homes. So, if they have enough equity in the home, super, super small payment with their primary, and then possibly have those funds to, get something to invest in as well.
Cool. That's cool. And then when they've got to throw it all at the, or let's just say they've sold a $300,000 house and they're buying a $500,000 house. Are they throwing, and they have $300,000 of equity? Are they throwing all the equity into the new house, or what are some of the strategies that you guys are talking with them about?
I mean, it's a situational basis, and depending on
Hmm.
what they want to do, we ultimately say, hey, what's your comfortable nest egg? Where do you want to be? What's the most you want to put into this new home? And then our team is really good at structuring around their goals. Because some people are like, we just had one, I want to put $80,000 down. That was their number. It didn't matter
Yeah.
what the loan was. And then some people we advise, hey, yeah, if you've got the funds, let's get rid of the mortgage insurance and at least go conventional that way and keep the cash to have as a nest egg or reinvest elsewhere. But I think our goals call is like the number one most important conversation I ever have with anybody, because I really get a feel for what they want to do, and how they feel comfortable. Because, we can put a million loans together for somebody, I've learned. And if it's not gonna fit in their, what they're wanting to spend and what their monthly budget is, it's not going to benefit anybody.
I
Right.
love what you call it. You call it the goals call.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yep.
That's
Goals
good.
and timeline, tell me what
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah.
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 And then we have a
That's
better
really good.
idea.
Well,
Mhm.
and that's a good, and that goes back to what we were saying about planning, right? I
Mhm.
mean, if you're on the verge, if nothing else, have a goals call with me and with you guys over at Revolution so that we can help you strategize. Maybe you're still looking, or as you said, Janelle, earlier, the house comes on the market, you missed it because you weren't ready, right?
Yeah.
We've got one of those right now, Heather. We've got one of those in our, I won't name names, but we do have clients who who found the right house, but they didn't get
Yep.
all the, they're not ready to go yet.
Yep.
Because they've kind of got the cart before the horse, right?
Mm.
Yep. Or they drag their feet on the documents and you're like, I need them, I need them, I need them. And they just don't think it's that important,
Right.
or
We'll
they
get to
have
that later.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, or they'll have a credit problem, and if we catch that ahead, then we can fix all that stuff before
Yeah.
you look, like set you up with a game plan. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I can't help you today, but I can give you the steps and I can help you and I'll hold your hand to get you ready, but
Yeah,
I can't do it for you. I'll sit
right.
on a three-way call with you. I'll meet you at the library and help you, but like you've got to put in the effort too,
Yeah,
and don't get mad at me when you don't close on time or when you're not pre-approved in time for that house you really wanted. It's a team effort, not just from me and my team, but from the buyer, from, you, Scott. We all have to work together to make it happen seamlessly. And that's what's great about having partners like you guys, where, we do work together enough and we know what each other needs and how, to work those loans and work with our buyers together.
Mhm. And
yeah.
that's the thing, is like, just because you're ready doesn't mean you don't, if you've never done it, you don't know what ready means.
Mhm.
So
That's a
just because you
that's a
decided to like,
great
yeah, I want
line.
to buy a house, well, if your
Yep.
credit stinks, then it takes a whole heck of a lot. And it does take a lot of like documents just to bring in for a pre-approval. So that's the readiness that people, you don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it's not a quick process.
that's a great line. And I want to add a little detail to that. You use the word pre-approval. Part of why I work with Revolution and Heather's team over there and Todd and all is because these guys, what they do is they actually kind of pre-underwrite all of my people. So
Mhm.
I don't bring somebody to the table that is just pre-approved. We had a deal where I had a buyer for one of my listings that had a nice pre-approval letter. Only it got bogged down after the fact because they really started digging into the person's finances. And then finally we discovered that there was all this stuff that wasn't collected, this information that hadn't been collected by the lender until too late. And then fortunately, we were able to get them to shift to another lender, and we were able to close the deal. But the point is that these guys go a little bit further, a lot further with their underwriters, underwriting, sort of pre-underwriting our buyers. And that takes more work, but it also, on everybody's part, but it also prepares the buyer to be the best possible, put the best possible offer on the table. The most likely to close offer is always going to be one that's pre-underwritten, because it's basically saying, here's the money, right?
Yeah. And there's no hiccups or surprises. We catch them early. It's just such a game changer. I won't mention names, but where I worked before did not work that way. And it was not a pleasant experience for anybody involved. And it's been a beautiful, beautiful change being with Revolution and how we follow that process. And, once we get somebody to where we know they're pre-approved, they go through a mortgage presentation and we explain, this is what to expect. And these are going to be the steps. And these are the documents we're going to need. So it's not like they feel like they're getting stuff thrown at them. They've kind of had that presentation, and then we send them a little pamphlet on their computer, a PDF that they can review. And, that's where it's just a matter of, yeah, you should be prepared, because like you said, if you don't know what you need to be prepared, you're not going to know. So take the chance, make the phone call, have that goals call, and then at least you know what you're getting into. And I think a lot of people, once they hear it and they know they've got somebody backing them, they realize it's not as horrible as people make it out to be.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought I had to have 20% down. No, you
Hear
don't.
that a lot.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just about the education and having the people that are willing to educate people, which is, I think, really important, because a lot of people don't want to take the time. And I think that's doing a disservice to everybody. Everybody that you work with is going to feel it, as well as the buyer, and it's not going to be pleasant, So
Right.
I think that's just so important to be prepared. I can't stress it enough.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to add to that, sometimes in this business, I have found that, people, they're just racking up numbers. And one of the things that I can honestly say, and we started this earlier, is that the satisfaction that we get as a team here, the three of us and the people around us get when we have accomplished something on behalf of our clients.
Awesome.
It is so rewarding when the client is happy, right? When the client is in that house that they love, and everything is moving along smoothly. It is such a satisfying moment in this process. Before we go, though, I want to raise a topic. Just take a few more minutes here. Things do go sideways. They go sideways in the deal, right? We talked about, hopefully you're working with Revolution, so your finance situation doesn't go sideways, but it can, and there are reasons why that happens. There are reasons why on Janelle's team stuff can go sideways, not just because of discovery on title and things like that. And then there's the sideways that happens after the fact, when a purchase has been made, or a person has sold a house. Stuff can go wrong. I don't want to paint just such a rosy picture that people think it's easy. We try our best to make it as easy as possible, but there's still work involved and things can go wrong, and we try our best to offset the results of that. But just as an example, Heather, maybe you have a story to tell, a quick story to tell around things and how they got solved.
Yeah, so I had a woman, God bless her, his story's going to go like forever with me, but she was had to refinance her house as per divorce. It was part of the settlement. So she came to us. The husband, we found out in doing the fraud check, had 3 or 4 liens on the home that she had no idea were there. He had taken out, equity lines and credit cards and forged her name and all this stuff. So when we went to refinance the home, we couldn't do anything because these liens are attached and he's on them. So now he's completely unresponsive. He doesn't talk to her, doesn't open mail. I'm physically calling, and I'm like, they laugh at me. They call me a pit bull. So I'm little, but like I don't let things go. So I'm like calling the guy's school, and I'm like, no, like we need to get a hold of him. So finally got to the point we had to call the judge's magistrate. Like, I mean, it got ridiculous, but we were able to get it dropped. They removed it. So it was fantastic.
Wow.
But in the meantime, she was late on bills and her credit dropped below a 580. But the good old new Fannie Freddie no credit thing, it was one of the saviors. It saved her. The LTV was good enough to be able to get it approved, and
Good.
she was able to get that home refinanced, and it was like the best thing ever because as a female we're like, oh, I'm gonna get you and she's gonna get her stuff taken care of.
You're not part of that.
Not you, though, Scott. Plug your ears. But no, it was just so it went awry like 5 or 6 times, and it took 6 months to get the loan closed. But like by the end, she was like my best buddy, she became like my mom, and it was pretty cool. So
wow,
that's
that
another
is
good
such
thing,
a great story. Great
about
story.
having the team behind you, and it wasn't just me that was able to do that. It was the guidance of everybody on our team to make it happen. So it was really cool.
Yeah.
And it helps to be a bulldog.
Sometimes my mom taught me well. I can be. I'm very, very nice until you like start pushing or taking advantage, and then
don't cross Heather. Okay. I'm glad we're meeting on Zoom. Anyway. Janelle, how about you?
Yeah. So, with us, we do a title exam, see if there's anything on the property. It goes back 42 years. So what happens and what frustrates people is when we go back to do that one little swoop right before we close, if something can come up, and things come up, they could have a mechanic lien put on the house. And here's what I always say: when there's a lender involved, there's 46 people touching this deal throughout the entire transaction. This is a human business. But what I think that when something goes awry, it is how the team finds the solve. And what I like working with Todd and Heather and Scott is it's not this person, this person. It's like, okay, let's own it and let's fix it. Because in this business, we all have the same goal, and that's to get you to the closing table. And there are bumps. If there's an attorney general lien, it could take 3 weeks just for them to look at your inquiry. And yes, is that set close dates back? Yes. Did people already book their movers? It's just in the handling of explaining, hey, nobody wants this to happen, but here's a reason why this happened. And at the end of the day, you're going to be in your house with a clear title, with your loan, with a great experience with Scott. But it truly is a team effort. But something happens along the way. Maybe the buyer didn't pull their weight, or they lost their job, or the seller decided they didn't want to move. And there are things. It's just a human business and how you handle it. So, expect things to go awry. That's just life. It's just business. But it's who you work with that's able to get the solve for everybody. And I think that's what's most important in this particular business.
Yeah, I think that's a great reflection on the choices that we make in terms of who we work with, because who we work with matters. It matters for our clients, and it matters for us as and I'm not boasting here. I mean, the fact is that communication and making sure that we never catastrophize things, that we're always looking at it like, okay, this is the obstacle. We're going to get through this. And here are what's your take, or what's your take? What would you do? What do you think we could do? It's working together to get through the process, right? And as you said, get you to the closing table, and everybody's got a smile on their face. And these kind of things, it's Murphy's Law. What can happen will happen. So,
right.
It's just a matter of when and where and to whom. And so we're out there anticipating those things. But then again, truthfully, there are certain things that just kind of do pop up, like,
Right.
like you were just saying, Heather, about your story.
Hmm.
When you started talking, I immediately thought he's exactly what he did. Like that
Yep.
is what happens. It just
Yeah.
does. And it's not news to my ears that someone was taken advantage of in that way. Um,
Hmm.
Now that said, when people buy a house, they own it, and sometimes not everything can be anticipated before the closing table. And unfortunately, that just happens sometimes where, when you bought a house, you own it, and you have to know that when you buy it and you've got your inspection and everybody's looked at it and said they're, given you their advice on the house, and what they think you may have to do in the future to fix this or fix that. You have to know that those things are coming. We have a lot of first-time home buyers, for example, that are coming out of rental situations, and that's one of the things I really try to stress with people. We're going to get this inspection. I want you to look at that inspection as a deferred maintenance list. Whatever we can't negotiate, in the deal, so that it gets fixed, or so that there's some sort of compensation or concession to you, my buyers. I want you to know that these are things that my inspector is telling you are things that you should be thinking about.
Right.
And then there are the things that we can't see.
Yep.
It looks like everything looks good. You got to know that there's some things that will come up from time to time. It could be a plugged up toilet. It could be, the washing machine breaks, or the dishwasher is not working. It's leaking all over the floor. Stuff happens.
Right.
And you now have to know that every penny you're spending is going into your asset. So, again, going back to not catastrophizing things, yes, you got to absorb all that energy and realize that this is what's going on in your house. At the same time, you got to just fix it, and you got to just
Right.
move forward. So home ownership is not like without, and I don't want to scare anybody away, but at the same time, I mean, if I paint a picture of the ideal client, it's somebody who's listening. If nothing else, is listening to my advice. Okay.
Mhm.
I've been around the block a few times. This is not my first rodeo. So I feel like I can bring a lot to the table there when it comes to that kind of advice. And I just don't want people to miss that, because it is awesome when you buy your first house, or it is awesome when you move into something that you've been dreaming of, but then also own it. So let's
Yep.
not forget that.
It's like a body. You have to take care of it. You have to take,
Yep.
you have to feed it well. You have to work it out. You have to, just like that, you have to take care of the inside and outside. A really quick example, I have a son who's having a surgery. It's not going to fix certain things, but it's like buying a house and having to do all your electrical work. You put all this money into it and you don't see a thing, but you know for the good of my house, the good of my son, that those are the things that have to be done. But
Mhm.
it's part of home ownership. But at the end of the day, you're going to sell it and make some cashola and move to the next or whatever, or end up there. So, but yeah,
Great,
but oh,
great
sorry.
point. No,
Yeah,
great point. I mean, you put your money into something that doesn't, you don't see new curtains. You don't see,
Yep.
there's not a new floor, but you've invested in your future,
right,
Mhm.
right?
right.
Or in your son's future, in this case.
Yeah,
Wishing
yeah, yeah,
wishing him
yeah.
well, wishing him well.
Thank you. But
Yeah,
anyways, you get
yeah,
my point. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
For
Well,
sure.
with that, we're going a little long, but that's okay. I hope you guys don't mind.
Oh,
Before we
goodness.
go, I just want to give each of you a last minute here to tell us anything you want to say about the market, or where things are going, or how do you want to leave it today? Janelle, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. I always say when it's time to you to go buy and sell or sell, just do it because you got to take that leap. And I will tell you right now, Scott, I've been in the business for 10 years. Scott is really an awesome advocate and fiduciary for his clients. He really genuinely take care. So if you're looking for an agent, I would say absolutely give Scott a chance. He's awesome.
I appreciate that, Janelle. How about you, Heather? How would you like to leave it with our folks tonight?
Same thing, just be ready, be prepared, have a game plan. Even if it's not today, in the future, you've got something situated and you know that you can make it happen, even if it means you got to put a little bit of work in there for it. But having the team behind you, not just the agent, but your lender and the title and all that stuff, knowing that they can work well together makes things so much easier. But yeah, just it's not as hard as it has to be. There can be difficulties, but it's worth it in the end for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to leave it with this. I After college, I never rented again. I made an investment in a fixer-upper. I bought this cheap house in a nice little neighborhood in Oberlin, and I spent sweat equity and a little bit of cash to make it my house, and eventually sold it for twice as much as I paid for it. And I would encourage everybody out there that has been thinking about that first time purchase, for example, to have an open mind about what you can do in this market. Because if you were to invest today, what I know for sure is that the value of your home will go up. It may not double in value in a short period of time, but it's all but certain the value of that home is going to go up. And as it does, so does your value, the amount of value that you have, and whatever it is that you've invested in it is going up. And I think that that's number one. Number two, going back to the moment, this is the moment. I think for a lot of people who've been waiting, and I don't want to overstress it, but I don't want to understress it. I think it's important that, as Janelle was saying, if you were thinking about it, if this is something that's been on your mind and you've been waiting for whatever reason or all of the above, let's talk. Let's put together, as Heather said, a game plan. In the next 3 to 6 months, you could have sold your home and be in your new home and have decided to make that move. And then when the interest rates go up, and I'm willing to bet $50 today that in the next 6 to 12 months, they're going to go up, assuming that the economy continues to be churning the way it is. And I don't see a change there. We're going to see the value of your home will go up, and you will have sold in the market where it was possible to do that. And I think that's, or at least better for you to have done it. Let's put it that way. So now, I don't want to understress it, but I don't want to overstress it. Now is really an important time. And I can't thank you guys enough for participating. This has been a terrific evening, great conversation. We do this every third Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock live on Facebook. We also have an Eventbrite that we've set up for this event, so that if you wanted to participate and actually ask questions and jump on Zoom with us to ask a question or two, please join us in the future. And then I also have every first and third Thursday of the month, I also do a coffee confessions event at Good Kind Coffee in Lakewood, Ohio at 8:30 in the morning, 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning, every first and third Thursday of the month. Come on over, have a cup of coffee with me. I'll pay for it. You come with a question. You come with questions or curiosity about what's going on in the market, in the real estate world in Northeast Ohio. I will pull back the curtain for you and tell you all about the ins and outs of what's going on, and I'll buy you a free cup of coffee. I hope you'll join me sometime. So with that, ladies, thank you very, very much. It's been fun, and we'll see you all next month. Take care.